Hey guys, so I wanted to answer some Q&As that I get a lot on the channel, and that is why don't I post many automotive videos? Why don't I talk about more access control and safes and all of this? So collectively, I wanted to answer this all for you guys in one video. And to do that, I went ahead back to my cue card era that you guys all know and love from the beginning of the channel. And I want you guys to understand this. I want you to think of locksmithing as an umbrella term. And under locksmithing, we have 5 divisions. So what I've done here on the cue card is I've written it down to where you guys see locksmithing, and then we have our 5 divisions: residential, commercial, automotive, safes, and access control. So we're going to break this down here. I'm going to bookmark this along the bottom so you guys can skip to the one you want to learn about. Or if you want to learn about them all, continue the ride. So residential, commercial, this one we can knock out real quick. These two run parallel with each other. When I say that, pinning them up's the same, rekeying's the same, picking them is generally the same. You can take your 3000th lab kit, your plug followers, and your SC1 and rekey a home, and you can take that same setup to rekey your convenience store down the road. They all run in parallel with each other, and the commercial locksmith career is built on the foundation of residential. So those two make sense. You see a lot of traditional shops offer residential commercial services. So you do see that. That is the bare bones blueprint of locksmithing. That is the true locksmith shop. So after that, you have 3 divisions that just fall under the umbrella of locksmithing. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be access control. Access control is exactly what it says. It controls access. So the lowest form of access control would be giving your employees do not duplicate keys, and you are controlling access to who is available to enter your facility. Another form of access control would be your residential smart lock. You control your cleaner coming in, deleting the codes of tenants, stuff like that. So because of that, access control, locksmiths took that under the umbrella and said, we're going to offer this service. The problem came when they would wire up these systems, because once you get to a certain level, it's no longer, installing a quickset Halo or a Camelot. You're over here installing, it's no longer keys. Like here in California, at least, a lot of the big companies and corporations are getting away from keys in general. So when you walk in, they're all key fobs and key cards and badges. So it has nothing to do with locksmithing anymore. Even the lockers are now all keypads. And when you get there, you realize like it's all wiring. And they really have electricians wiring up the system. The reason why is because access control technicians have more in common. It's going to hurt some feelings here. They have more in common with an electrician than they do with a locksmith. Locksmiths were kind of living in the gray area of access control, where they were going in and wiring up these systems, setting everything up, installing the keypads and everything. But they legally, due to codes and licensing issues, they could not complete the job. They had to outsource that to a licensed electrician. These electricians would come in and say, why didn't we just do the whole job? So now when I'm driving down the 5 or the 10 or the 215, I am seeing electrician vans offer access control. I'm seeing it on the side of their van. So you're seeing that, and it is what it is, but it's an electrician's job. To break down and elaborate on that, these are what you're looking at when you get into true access control. You're talking about, what I didn't write here was mag locks. Most of them are installing mag locks at this point. Key cards, key fobs, keypads, and pin pads, call boxes, gates, and communication systems. Nothing on here has anything to do with a lock shop. Nothing to do with a locksmith. None of it. The only thing maybe here is the key, but like when you get the new box, it comes with a new one, so nobody's worried about it. But none of this has to do with a lock shop. If I go from rekeying a house and a building to walking over to install a hall box for an HOA, what am I really doing? You know what I mean? None of this has anything to do with the other. So really, like, it falls under that umbrella because you can make crazy amounts of money. But unless you are a licensed electrician and you have a contractor's license in almost all these cases, you're not, if you're going to charge less than $1,000, access control is not worth it at all in the least. But there's big money in it for these big warehouses. Those are the jobs that you're really going for. That's kind of why, because now locksmiths really took advantage at one point, and now electricians really took it back. They said, no, this is our world, not yours. That's why I don't really mess with it too much, because especially up here with insurance is basically just having, they don't want to say, oh, why are we paying two people to do one job? They're saying just have the electrician do the entire job. If the electrician can finish it, they can start it. That's how insurance looks at it. So unless your shop is now licensed as an electrician, you're not really going anywhere. Or you're doing it in the gray area, which you really don't want to do, because that can fall back and it can be very expensive. So this sums up access control. Moving on to safes. Safes, again, just like access control has more to do with electricians, safe technicians have more in common with an engineer than they do with a locksmith. When I go to open a safe or manipulate a safe, I am not using any tools that I use otherwise in my career. I have a bag specifically for safes that I don't touch unless I go to a safe. The tools that I use are specific to safes. I manipulate a lot of them, but if you have to drill them or you have to open them various ways, I'm not talking about like the cabinets you buy at like Harbor Freight. I'm talking about like legitimate big time safes. You also don't have a lot of people that specialize in it. Now, here's the gray area and the trickery that you kind of run into with lock shops. You'll see a lock shop say residential, commercial, automotive safes. So people, just the general public walking by, they see safes on the window and they say, oh, all locksmiths open safes. So then when they inherit a safe from their grandfather that they don't know a code to, they walk in and all of a sudden the shop says, oh, no, we don't open the safe. We sell safes and we install them for you. We don't open them. So that's where they get you there. So a lot of shops around me, they offer safes on the window, but when you walk in, they say, we'll sell you a safe because they make a commission. And then they make their money off of installing it for you. They send someone out there with a drill to drill it, and they install it to the wall or the floor. But that's about the extent. In my area, I'm the only one that'll touch a safe. When I go outside of my zone, there's two shops that have one technician each that will touch a safe. And one of them only touches commercial safes because he gets paid off of insurance. The other one will go out and mess with safes, but it's very rare. To give you an example, I handle the 9 cities around me. I'm the only one that touches safes, to the point that the other shops send safes to me. For the entire month of October so far, I've had 4 calls. So you're not really going to make a living off of safes unless you do like the other guy and you handle just commercial, and he travels 6-7 hours sometimes to go to these, but he's working for like fast food and big corporations, so that's all he does, but it's guaranteed money for him, and he charges an insane amount of money. Outside of him, you're not really going to make a living off of safes unless you do that. So it has nothing to do with this. You can learn everything you know about commercial and residential and look at a safe and you are lost. You don't even know where to begin because it has nothing to do with the rest. It just happens to lock. The safe locks. That's really it. There's no parallel between anything else that you're going to come across unless you want to try and argue that a dial master lock is very similar. Like, no. Okay? No. You can argue the concept, but once you get to these systems, it's more elaborate than that. So it falls under the scope, under the umbrella, but it is not really a locksmith's job. And when you do talk to the 2 guys out of my area about it, they don't call themselves locksmiths. Well, one of them does. The other one doesn't touch anything. The guy that I told you he travels, he doesn't touch a doorknob. He doesn't touch a panic device. He doesn't even know how to take off a panic device. All he knows is safes, and he calls himself a safe technician. He does not call himself a locksmith. he is very upfront. He says, I just touch safes. He's seen me one day. He was opening a safe at a fast food place, and he kind of asked me one, like we were just kind of talking, and he's like, "How do you remove that lever handle?" And it was just a commercial lever handle, but he didn't know how to remove it. He's like, "There's no screws on it." He was so just mystified by how you remove that. And I'm over here watching him open up a whole safe, and just to kind of show you there, it's not really the same. It falls under the scope. Some guys work in the gray area where they advertise they sell it, but they don't really mess with it otherwise. So that really has nothing to do with locksmithing. It's just something that I kind of do. So when I come across them, I will kind of help you guys where I can. And then we go to automotive. So I know I'm about to hurt a lot of feelings here, and I am unapologetically about to do so. Automotive locksmiths have more in common with a mechanic than they do with a locksmith. You have people that joke around with the code smiths because nowadays you could just enter a VIN and get the code and cut the key and then just hook up your scanner and program. That's what a lot of these guys do. When it comes to older vehicles, you never know if that's going to work. It's kind of a gamble. Some of these VINs can be expensive. So you could pay for the VIN and then you find out another locksmith, automotive locksmith, drilled out the ignition and then replace it with like something from the auto parts store, which is extremely common. And now your code means nothing because they're like, oh, my ignition key never worked in my door. I forgot to tell you that. Also, when I get to cars, so for me, it's I don't really touch automotive, mainly because of the customers. I'm going to be upfront with you on this one. With commercial, I have accounts. The paperwork's all there. Everything is documented. It's pretty cut and dry. Residential wise, outside of lockpicks, obviously, it's really not common to find somebody that's going to try and trick you outside of like a divorce situation where it's like someone locking their significant other out. For the most part, it's pretty chill. You don't have to worry about a lot. Evictions can get messy, but again, you're still dealing with documents and the police. With cars, people will tell you anything you want to hear to get you out there, and you'll drive 30 minutes out to a car, and they're like, "Oh, well, it is in my name, but I'd never really fully transfer the title. The insurance is actually in my mom's name or my girlfriend's name, but we're not together anymore." And then you run into that. Or you run into where the paperwork aligns, but they have 100 wires hanging out of the vehicle. And they're like, oh, I was working on the ignition. I got everything back. I just decided to go with you. Then you run into that, and it's like, I'm not touching this now. I don't know what you broke, but if I touch it, you're going to say I did it. You got to deal with that. And then you have the scammers. Pre-COVID, you only had to worry about scammers. Post-COVID, you have to worry about licensed lock shops. To give you an example here, a 1993 Ford Ranger, I got this call not long ago, lost his key, needed a new one. He was calling around for quotes. Turns out he called one licensed, reputable guy who's been here for a long time, quoted him $425 for a key. Well, regardless of what you think about the price for a 93 Ford Ranger, that's that guy's price. He then calls my other competitor, who's a brick and mortar licensed lock shop. $650 is what he was going to charge him for the key. Now, I know I'm rural, but this guy, the truck was 8 minutes from that guy's shop. That guy wanted $650 to come out and cut him a key and program it. Then he calls another guy off of Facebook. And this guy is a plumber, handyman, painter, landscaper, locksmith. He quoted $100. The pricing makes no sense, okay? The pricing makes no sense anymore. Before COVID, you used to call licensed guys and they would be, oh, I'm $450. Oh, I'm $425. Oh, he's $500. I'll do it for $480. You would have that. Now $450 and $650 are nowhere close. And then $100 to that is nowhere close. So you're dealing with this. You're dealing with price gouging. You're dealing with just insanity. And it turns out that I learned all three of them were going to use the exact same key blank. The exact same brand. I did my research on it. I found that out. They all use the exact same. So they were all going to make 100% profit. Okay? Every single one of them. Regardless if you want to say, "Oh, it's my skill and my not," you're making all that profit, okay? In an economy where people are struggling to pay bills and buy groceries, $650 is insane for a 1993. You're acting like that's a BMW. And then when it comes, speaking of BMW, that guy who was going to charge 650, I had another customer call me for a quote for a Mini Cooper. That guy wanted $1,400 to make him a key. That's a real quote, a real life quote. I even called the shop and I was like, "Is that real?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I have to take apart the dash and do all this." He was basically saying all this stuff. So I was like, "What?" And I could have done it, but I was like, "You know what? Let me look this up." So I called Mini. I got a hold of them and they said, "Yeah, if the owner can show us documentation that it's his vehicle and he can prove it, we'll mail him a key for $500 and it will just start. It will be paired to the VIN, it will start." Then I called BMW. They have a similar system. So where these guys are charging over $1,000, the dealer's always cheaper when it comes to these German vehicles. Um, Post COVID, again, everybody's going crazy, so it's gone up somewhat. But it's usually cheaper to go with the dealer on most everything except like American. Um, but at one point, if you called a dealer and they were 500, locksmiths would say, "Okay, we're 450, we're 390." They would just go a little under. But it's so heavily saturated because auto part stores are making keys now. Automotive mechanic shops are making keys. Because when you actually look at it, I know when you go on the locksmith sites and you see these key programmers and they say, this is a straight up beast of a key programmer. Key programming is like 1% of what that machine can actually do. You can program the entire vehicle with that machine. You can check, you can diagnose everything about your vehicle with that machine. It's an automotive tool. Because of that, it's so widely available. Um, they're actually now they're implementing systems to kind of block the key programming portion because of security risks, because they realize they're like, we're giving all of this access. But for the programmer, they're like, it's part of the vehicle. Like you have to be able to program it. But when you get to the vehicle, only like 2% of the car is a locksmith's job. You're getting there, and if you really do have to take apart a steering column and door panels and trunk panels, and you're doing a mechanic's job to get to a cylinder that is comparable to an oversized mailbox. You know what I mean? It's like a mailbox lock. If you know how to rekey a mailbox lock, you can rekey a car. You know, you can pretty much, if you can figure out how to service a mailbox cam lock, you can service every vehicle before 2014. Okay, like it's really simple and easy. Um, the old classic cars, they even have tryout keys because they barely had any like variations. So you can actually just go out there with your tryout keys and just copy whichever one worked. You don't have to program or nothing. Um, so you have that, but for the most part, everybody's so everywhere on pricing. And then you have these scammers that pop up and they're just $100, $50 keys. I'm not competing with that. I'll do motorcycle keys because nobody else does them. They're scared of them, but I'll make a motorcycle key just as quick as I'll impression a key for a T-handle garage door. It's the same exact method. You just progression a cut or two and you're good. I'll do those, but outside of motorcycles, I hate cars. I hate them. Eventually, though, I have a buddy. He is an automotive technician, so programming keys is something he does and he specializes in. So when he gets back from traveling, I'm not sure when, but we do plan to collaborate and make some videos where he does a lot of the explaining on that front. I'd rather let the professional on that really go in depth because he's a really good teacher and he can really show you guys some tricks and tips so you're not just drilling out locks. Um, but that is really why you don't see me do a lot of them. I usually kind of give him the calls or I send them up to these other guys the same way they're sending me the safes. I really don't care. I'm not losing any money. I don't see the money in automotive at all. Some guys live and die by it. I am one of those guys that lives and dies by commercial. Commercial is where I make my money. It's guaranteed money, solid money. I'm good at it. I specialize in it for the last 10 years of my life. I have dedicated myself to it. So I stay in my lane. I'm not one of those locksmiths that's like, I do everything. I don't like to be that guy, especially I compare it to the handyman. Oh, I can fix your ceiling fan, or I can program your smart lock, or I can rekey your mailbox. I'm not that guy. When you start to do too much, the quality of work slacks off among everything you do. Like the saying, like, uh, jack of trades, master of none. You can do it all, but is it like a high quality work, or are you just kind of getting through the job? I like to just stay in my lane. I'm not out here trying to install doors and put the locks on. I'm just putting the locks on. I don't have a problem with outsourcing the door job to somebody else. But that is my explanation for all of this. So hopefully this gives you guys some insights. I don't know when my buddy will be back from traveling, but once he is, we're going to work on some automotive videos for you. Again, that'll be from his point of view, but we do want to help you guys out on that front. If you guys are jumping in, automotive is everywhere. Like most places you go and you call, they're all automotive first and everything else is secondary. Because not a lot of locksmiths know commercial. Just straight up with you. Even at lock shops, the guys that do commercial, they just had to learn it on the fly. So commercial is the most difficult for everybody. Automotive is the easiest to learn. I know you guys might think residential. Automotive is 1,000 times easier to learn than residential locksmithing. Um, just by the end of the day, I can have you pretty proficient as an automotive guy, where it takes a few weeks for people to really grasp the concept of a residential locksmith. So just to explain all of that, hopefully this does, though, give you guys some insights and some help. And I will catch you guys in the next Q&A or DIY lock video. Thank you guys for watching.